It's over for these hoes. I'm an inspiration to a generation. It's over for these hoes. You especially. That's the new banger.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to How Come. That was my new hit single. It's Over for These Hoes, performed by the wonderful, talented, beautiful comedian, stand-up genius, and my boyfriend, Ben DeMarco.
Written by the beautiful, talented, hilarious stand-up comedian, podcaster Remy Casimir.
Yeah, I wrote it when I was depressed, and it's about how it's over for these hoes when I stop being depressed, and these hoes are my demons. This episode does not have Ben on it. He was just here to sing for you. It's the new Bop 2022. Learn about it. Play it in the clubs. I hope you like it better than the beatboxing. I certainly do. This episode's really good. We have Jessamyn Stanley on. The world is bad, but the episode is good. What's going on in the world? You know, abortion rights are being stripped. So we did a whole episode on patreon.com/howcome. We didn't put it out because we were like, are we doing too many abortion episodes? Which is a crazy thing to say, but whatever. If you want to watch it, everything on Patreon is just $5. And I highly recommend, if you have the extra cash, donating to an abortion fund in a state where it is not legal anymore. Woohoo! This episode's not about that. This episode is about so many other things: imposter syndrome, responding to negativity on the internet or negativity in your life, yoga, etc. We're talking to Jessamyn Stanley, who is so awesome. You're really going to like her and what she has to say. And I think you're going to love this episode. If you do, tip us. We have that new tipping feature, and some of you have already used it, and we thank you and we love you. We recorded this episode a month ago, but it rings truer today than when it was recorded. You'll see that at the end of it. I did like a really cool edit that you'll be like, how did they didn't talk about this if you already watched it on Patreon. Let's get this episode started. Woo!
Yeah.
How come? How come? How come I can't achieve? How come I can't achieve? I'm rolling up my sleeves. I'm rolling up my sleeves. Oh baby, I believe these guests can help. 'Cause I can't do it by myself. I wanna jizz.
Ooh, we're back. We have an amazing guest. We're so excited.
We're here.
Cleaned my hair.
Me too.
Good.
Hi.
Hi. How's it going?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good, thank you.
It's so nice to meet you.
Feeling is mutual.
Thank you for coming on the show.
How's your day going today?
It's good. It's busy, but it's good.
It's good.
What about you?
Good. Totally. I feel that
Hectic, yeah.
completely. Same. Very, very, very hard. Same. Yeah.
Wait, I have a question before we start.
Please do.
Were you in a commercial recently?
I was in a commercial recently.
I knew it.
I was like, did you see me in a commercial recently?
Yes. What's it? What was it for again?
It's for the Adidas I'm Possible campaign.
Yes. Amazing.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Thank you. It's so weird to be seen by people in that way. You know what I mean?
I do.
It's an interesting sensation.
Yeah. When I was living at my grandma's house, one of her doormen was like, oh, I saw you on Netflix. And like, I know what I talk about on that thing. And I'm like, so you know I squirt.
No, totally. It's a conversation starter.
Yeah. Nice to see you too.
Yeah, right. Exactly. I appreciate that about the time we're living in.
Totally. Even the people like who have muted you will see you certain places. You're like, haha, it's me.
Yeah. One of my exes, whom I love dearly, but he definitely was like, I need some space from you after we broke up. And then afterwards, it was like a couple years later, he was like, you're a really difficult person to duck out.
Yeah. You're on Cosmo covers.
Yeah. I was like, yeah, I feel you.
Sorry, you can't escape me.
Right.
And if you listen to this podcast, you can't escape her here either.
Right.
We are talking to Jessamyn Stanley, who is an internationally acclaimed voice in wellness, highly sought after for her insights on 21st century yoga and intersectional identity. As a successful award-winning yoga instructor and entrepreneur, she is the founder of The Underbelly, co-host of the podcast Dear Jessamyn, and co-founder of We Go High. She's the author of Yoke My Yoga of Self-Acceptance and Everybody Yoga, Let Go of Fear, Get on the Mat, Love Your Body. You guys, welcome Jessamyn Stanley.
Thank you so much for having me. It's lovely to be here with you.
Thank you so much for being here. You have a new book out called Yoke or Yoki?
I've never heard yoki before.
That's what Robin was like. Maybe it's yoki, and I was.
I know. I just wasn't 100%. I'm fairly certain.
It is called my yoga of self-acceptance, but now in my head, it's now called yoki. Thank you.
You're a yoki.
Appreciate it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yoki. Funny.
Yoki Jessamyn.
Yes.
So what is yoke?
Yoke, contrary to popular belief, does not mean woke yoga. It means, it's my like American millennial definition of the word yoga. Yoga means to yoke. It means to join together. It means union. And so to me, when we yoke, we're bringing together the different parts of ourselves that don't necessarily make sense. So as opposed to like pretending like you're not racist or that you're not fat phobic or not a capitalist. It's about a similar, like bringing that together with the other parts of yourself. And for me, it has meant looking at some really unpleasant parts of myself, but finding that as a part of the healing journey and really so much of the path of yoga. And so yoke is a reflection on what it means to practice yoga in the 21st century when we are all coming to recognize ourselves as full human beings and also recognizing that our humanity and linking us together is how we can heal together.
Yeah, I love that because every time, like I used to do yoga and I feel like you'd go into a yoga studio and it was like, like be your best self. And I'm like, but I'm a shit. Like I'm a piece of shit.
You're like, yeah, but what do you do if you suck? I'm just wondering. Like asking for a
It's
friend.
like, you deserve this. I'm like, do I? I'm like a dick.
Amazing. Exactly. Absolutely. And that's really the thing about it is that we're all dicks. And so to say that like, that's a part of who you are as a person, like that for me to say like, I have very problematic opinions. I do things that are going to offend people, that do offend people. I like will say the wrong thing. And to do all of that and live all of that unapologetically is just really, I think, the whole point of this experience of being human.
Right. And there's no healing if you're not acknowledging the bad parts of yourself. Like if you just walk into the studio and you're like, nothing exists. Like, I'm great.
Exactly.
Like how are you going to grow from that place?
Literally. Exactly.
So when did you get into yoga?
I started practicing yoga. It's been about a decade now. I was in graduate school and I was just going through a generally tough time in my life. I actually talked about it a little bit in my first book, Everybody Yoga. But I was going through a time in my life that pretty much if you're human and you experience emotions, then you know what I was going through. And a friend of mine was really into yoga at the time. She was like, oh my God, come to yoga with me. It's going to change your life. And I had tried yoga once when I was in high school and just absolutely hated it. So I was like, that is not for me. That is for thin, wealthy white women, which I am not. So I won't be there. But she got me caught up on a Groupon. It was one of those things where it's like, if you go one time, it's not that big a deal. Like it's no big deal. So I went and everything about it was
not
awful.
That
like exactly. Yeah. But the posture seemed impossible to me. All of the breath work seemed impossible. I was definitely one of the only fat people, one of the only Black people. It was just a generally alienating experience. But even within that, I found myself in these different situations where I was like, predetermining my boundaries. I'd say like, no, I can't do that. I shouldn't even try. I would look at the other people in the room and be like, why did I even think I could come to this class? Like everybody in here knows that I shouldn't be here. The teacher knows. And I would just realize like, you could just try. You know, maybe you can't do it. Maybe everyone in the room is going to see you. Maybe you deeply embarrass yourself, but you could just try. And that idea of just trying was really transformational for me. It was really something that made me like look at every part of my life where I wasn't trying, where I decided like, this is as far as I can go, or this is what I'm supposed to do. And I saw that so much of my depression and unhappiness was coming from not stepping outside of the boundaries that I created for myself. And so even to this day, yoga really, I turn to it as a medicine so that I'm able to plug into life and be more present. And especially now in this era of like complete chaos, to be able to say that, okay, so the ocean is rocking, the waves are rocking, and it's okay to just be in the ocean. It's okay to ride the waves and to enjoy the ride.
Yeah, I like what you said too about feeling like, oh, I don't really belong here, because I feel like a lot of people, when they want to embark on working out, but like yoga specifically, like you're like, I want to look like the people in the room. And like, I've even said to myself, like, I'll start yoga when I am thin enough, when I have the right clothes, when I can do the poses and won't have my pooch sticking over my, you know, like I don't want when people won't be offended by my body because it's not perfect. And it's like, how does anybody start then if you have to be perfect before you go in?
Exactly. And that's
or
also
what
the
you
thing
think
about
of
yoga.
as perfect.
It's really for the pooch. It's for the fall. It's for the scar. It's if you are fucked up to any degree, yoga is for you. And that's always, that's the interesting thing of it to me, that I think that because it is so associated with fitness and athleticism and gymnastics, there's a thought that like, well, I have to get flexible in order to go to yoga. But the yoga really just pulls out the flexibility that was always there in your spirit. And that if you have like any kind of trauma that you need to work on or work out or look at, yoga is the place to do that. You can put all of your focus onto the practice. But even beyond the physical postures, which the physical postures are just a vehicle to get you to experience the inner self, that practice of breath work and meditation and actually just being patient and compassionate and present to yourself is something that has absolutely nothing to do with what you look like or how old you are or anything like that. It's just like, if you can breathe, you can do this practice. And
you use those tools throughout your day when going through other struggles.
Yes, exactly. And that's really the thing of it too, is that it really helps you anchor into the way that everything in life is kind of the same. Like there's ups and downs, but ultimately like you're always kind of in the same place. So when you practice yoga, it pulls you into that sameness, into that balance, so that the waves can crash around you and things can go up and down in your day, but you're still chill.
Do you have a specific type of yoga that you practice?
At this point, my personal practice is a hybrid of many different styles of yoga, but the style that I'm most representative of what I teach is Vinyasa style.
Yes.
Have y'all practiced Vinyasa?
That was my yassification of yoga.
I love that. You gotta, especially with Vinyasa. It's like asking for it.
Yeah, I love a Vinyasa flow. I think it's a really nice way to get into your body. I actually saw on TikTok this morning this girl doing an in-bed Vinyasa flow that she was like, if you just can't get up, like start your day like this. And I was like, that's where I need to start. Cause like
literally
that's where I am all the time. And like the idea of going to a class, I will never.
That's my favorite thing. I will never. I feel you completely. I mean, honestly, who doesn't need a Vinyasa flow, in bed Vinyasa flow, literally every day? Because our bodies are brand new every single day. So that like, it doesn't matter if you practice yoga every day. When you wake up in the morning, we're starting all over. It's Groundhog Day again, and you just roll with it.
It's a good little movement just to like get it started. Even if you like end up staying in bed the whole day, like it's a tiny little win. Like you're like, I did a little flow.
Yeah, right. Literally. Yeah, exactly. It's literally, that is such, I really appreciate you saying that, because that win of just like, I did it. I completed
a little thing. Yeah.
Look at this. Yeah. It makes all the difference.
That's why we make lists, just so we can cross them off and be like, I
oh
fucking did it.
Absolutely. What is your astrological sun sign? I knew it. Oh, I knew it. If you say anything about a list, that is a prominent Virgo placement. Absolutely. Yep. I don't like to guess people's charts anymore because I feel like I get it wrong so much. I'm a Cancer sun, but I'm Virgo rising. No, you better go off. Okay. That was good. Totally. Yeah. Anyway.
Okay. Good to know. No, now we know each other fully.
Yes.
You talk about in your book experiencing imposter syndrome, which is something that I feel a lot. How does that show up for you, and how do you deal with that? Imposter
syndrome has always, for me, shown up as like thinking that I don't know enough, or that I am not good enough, or that there's no reason for me to even try, or that I'm going to get found out, that someone else is going to see that I don't know, or that I should have done better, or something like that. And there have been a lot of experiences that have blown this open for me. The opening essay in Yoke is about literally an imposter syndrome that I had with spelling the word yoke. I'm not going to spoil it here, but if you get the book, then you'll see this. But the thing of it for me it's always come to just experiencing the hard emotion, like trying not to pretend that it's not happening, or like trying to skip to the ending and be like, no, I thought about that already. It's okay. I figured out how to solve my imposter syndrome. It's no big deal. It's saying, no, I experience imposter syndrome. I feel like I don't know enough. I feel like there are other people who know much more. I feel like I am embarrassed. Feeling embarrassed when I'm afraid to feel embarrassed is a huge part of it. But just generally letting it all be there, because I found that through just letting all of the emotions exist, I'm able to experience happiness more, because I'm able to just let all of it be there and not pretend as though pieces of it aren't there. And also being able to really look at the beauty of all of it as well, that there's beauty in not knowing, that there is so much wisdom in knowing how little you know. Totally. And that I will always be a beginner, and that if I can come to everything with a beginner mindset, then I'm never getting it wrong. Then what beginner is an imposter? A beginner is just a beginner. So you just always know what you know.
Yeah. And isn't it cool even to know that you don't know everything, because that just means that there's so much more to learn.
I always feel like that's like the proof of mastery of something, is knowing that you're never a master, that you don't know anything at all, and that there is always, anyone can teach you, and that everyone will teach you. And that's a piece of it for me also, is a fear of looking to other people for guidance and feeling like, no, I should already have the answer. This is probably a Virgo thing, actually. But the thing of it is like,
I should be perfect.
What if everyone, exactly. It's like I should have all the answers, but it's like, what if everyone else has all the answers and I'm just so lucky to get to be around them and learn as much as I can. But all of that is just a moment by moment journey.
I feel that so much too, because I feel like the second this podcast came out, a lot of people were quick to label me an expert or whatever if I would do their podcast, a sex expert. And I was like, oh God, I don't even want to do this stuff anymore if you're going to call me that, because I'm not that. Like, I started this from a place of being so dumb, and I still feel so dumb. And that's why I was telling Robin about this, and she was like, yeah, but that's why we have the guests. You know, they're so smart, and they come on and they talk about their experiences, and it's not about me being an expert. It's about talking to experts, going through even imposter syndrome.
And that is, I think, a form of being an expert, though, is to be gleaning wisdom and seeking wisdom. And it's all just like, we're all just, what it
so
Ron
dumb
says. What? No, we're all just walking each other home. We're all just like coming together to learn from one another,
raising each
and then
other,
going on our own journeys.
When it comes to accepting praise or accepting big moments in life, does your imposter syndrome get in the way? Like when Cosmo's like, we want you on the cover, you know?
Yeah, definitely. And I would say I struggle with it even now. I mean, with the Adidas Impossible campaign, that campaign is on billboards literally all over the world. And so I'm just kind of like, how do I process this? But for me, it's also deepened by this practice of yoga where I'm gazing at all the different parts of myself, and I'm very critical of the parts of myself that want to be seen, that need to be seen ultimately. And so I look at those things and I'm like, okay, I need to be present to how I'm perceiving myself, and then how other people are perceiving me, and then whether or not I'm drawing happiness or satisfaction from other people's perception of me as opposed to my perception of myself. So it comes this other thing of like, is it good for me to be really basking in a ultimately artificial glow? I think that
so kind of protecting yourself from the come down too.
Yeah. Yes. Well, and the come down is already happening in some way. You know, like how whenever you do something, you're already like looking on to the next thing.
Totally.
And so I definitely, that's a struggle for me, is like looking to the mountains.
Your Virgo pops out.
And I'm standing at the top of it is right in the rising. It's right in the front. But I do feel like the first few years of my public facing work, I definitely felt a lot of imposter syndrome anytime that I would be recognized at all. And I think that now I'm coming to terms with the fact that we're all here to shine. The point of being alive is to shine. And so it's okay to be witnessed by other human beings. But at the same time, there's this piece of wanting to be present to the self versus other people.
Yeah. Also, I feel like there's so many different ways to shine. Like people think of a public persona as like the way to shine because celebrity culture is so like ingrained in us. But like some people shine from like my grandmother was an amazing grandmother and mother. And, you know, like she didn't live a public life, but she was so bright.
Yes. I always think about my grandma. I'm so glad that you said that, because I think whenever it's like who inspires you, I think of like just like regular people, you know, like people who are just like living their lives, getting by, loved by the people who are closest to them, taking care of their communities. And my grandma always stands out to me as that type of person, like never met a stranger, always loving to everyone. And I mean, when she passed, the outpouring of love from her, from people that like were her customers at Harris Teeter. She worked at Harris Teeter for years, and like people that were like, you know, she was just a really nice person. Like that to me is really the point of life ultimately, is to just like show up, be present, and exude love as much as possible. And like you don't need to be in front of people to do that. I think it's a lot harder to do that when you're in front of people.
Yeah. No, my grandmother, when she passed away, like I was still living in her place, and this guy came up to like fix the AC, and he said, I miss your grandmother so much. And I was like, me too. And like, I was just like, oh my God, you're hurting just as much as me, because she meant as much to, you know, it's so nice.
Literally. It is. And well, that just reminded me that at my grandma's funeral, my grandma was very religious, and at her memorial, everyone was like, just talking about her like she was the most pious individual. And literally at the end of her life, I remember her telling me like some very dark stories, and also like saying like she never drank like when I knew her, and she was like I wish I could have a Jack Daniels right now or some shit like that. I can't remember. And so at the funeral or at the memorial, I was just like, bah! Like I was like, you guys don't know my grandma at all. Like a full meltdown on some like, she was such a deep person. Like she was problematic too. But it's just you know, we all have the memories that we have. Anyway.
Nanny was our problematic queen, definitely sometimes. But that's why it's good to live with them at the end, because you can fix them. But you were talking about she was, or they were talking about that she was super religious. I saw that you grew up in a very devout Bahá'í. Is that how it's pronounced?
Exactly, Bahá'í.
House. What is that? And
totally.
Yeah. First, let's do that, and then I'll ask the second part of that. What is that?
The Baha'i faith is, to quickly summarize, Baha'is believe that all human beings are one. We believe in the oneness of humanity, and that men and women are equal. That the men and women are like the wings of a dove, that if one wing is broken, the bird cannot fly, and that all religions are one as well, and that they all share the same message. So
Am I that?
No, you're like, I'm so confused.
I'm not Jewish anymore, you guys. I'm Baha'i.
But there are a lot of the writings of the Baha'i faith, I think, are open to interpretation for sure. And the way that some of the writings have been interpreted is what I would define as homophobic. And so when I came out, when I was in high school, well, when I was in high school, I was coming out, and I realized like I was reading the writings and just feeling like in deep conflict with my faith. And so for a number of years, I walked away from the faith and was not religious at all. And even now, I would say that I'm more spiritual than religious. But yoga has really helped me have a better understanding of spirituality more generally and religion more generally. And that's helped me have a better relationship with the faith. But it was the defining marker of my childhood. Like we were... And in yoga, I said it was like, or I don't know if this made it in the final edit, but I remember at one point saying that I was like the Bahá'í equivalent of an altar boy. So like if you grew up like really Catholic, or even like I know there's some kind of Jewish equivalent too. Totally, literally. I was there at every fireside feast, Sunday service. Like I was committed, and it was my whole social life. And so there was a lot that happened for me definitely in like understanding my sexuality, understanding like drugs and alcohol, and being around people who were not raised in the Baha'i faith. That happened to me whenever I walked from the faith.
Where does it originate?
In what was once called Persia, in that region.
Okay. Because we've talked about a lot how yoga itself has become this super white thing. And for a lot of people, it's not really a spiritual thing. So does Baha'i kind of lend itself to yoga, or it was a completely separate thing?
Such an interesting question. So I only found this out in like the last 10 years of researching yoga and learning more about it. But a lot of the first yoga practitioners in America were Baha'is. And it's because the yoga practice and the teachings of yoga, especially as it comes through Hinduism, very much relate to the teachings of the Baha'i faith. And so it's like a very natural pair up. But it is so interesting how yogic spirituality is not understood as much as the physicality of yoga. Yeah. And I think that for me, it was helpful for me to experience them separately, to experience, like I had my whole childhood and youth of religion. And then I was like, fuck religion. And I was like, I'm just not here for that at all. And then when I came to yoga, I was like, not clear on the spirituality. And I was like, I don't even know if I'm supposed to be doing this, because like, if you're not South Asian, should you even be practicing yoga? So I was like, it's not for me. I think these poses are probably cool, because that's like pretty much exercise. So I'm just going to do that.
Yeah, but I love this little egg child's pose is so good.
But the practice of looking within yourself, regardless of how much you focus on handstands or whatever, it will always lead you to be within your spiritual self too. So I found that I was able to understand spirituality as a completely separate idea from religion, because they didn't come in the same package for me. But the thing about practicing yoga is that, and really even to speak to that appropriation piece of it, is that like cultural appropriation, I would argue, is not a requirement of practicing yoga. I think that if you are genuinely living the practice of looking within yourself to unite the different parts of yourself, if you're yoking, you will be led back to your own. Yes, if you're getting yoked, you will be led back to your own identity, to your own faith, not to somebody else's. And that you can learn about the history of South Asia and the ways in which yoga is directly ingrained in the culture. And that can be separate from you. There can be an appreciation for that, but that can be separate from your own yoga, your personal yoga, my personal yoga. And so like, I felt like appropriation is like imperialism. It's like wanting to own something, colonization, all of those things are related to one another.
Take it over and push the other people out.
Yeah, it's about theft.
Yeah.
And that practice is very different from breathing, connecting your breath with your emotion, and using that as a vehicle to look within yourself.
Mm-hmm. You kind of talked about this earlier, about being one of the only Black people in these spaces. How did that feel, and has that transferred to your audience at all?
Definitely. I would say that it absolutely has.
Okay.
There's in ways that I think are debatable, but that are very interesting for me sociologically. I still feel like the mainstream yoga world is extremely white. And so being like a prominent Black voice in the community means that there are, I believe, white people who will come to me for some form of absolution, who feel like, no, I have a Black yoga teacher, so like it's cool. Like I'm doing the right thing, you know? And I'm kind of like, I don't think that's how that works actually at all.
Yeah.
And it's kind of awkward.
I want to be that for you.
Right.
I don't want to be your pass.
Right. And I'm not ultimately.
Yeah.
But it is also my yoga to experience that and to really like to sit in how I grew up going to predominantly white schools, and I have been in so many different environments in which I'm being tokenized. And even now, so much of my professional work, this like work that is, I think, called success, like being on the cover of magazines and being seen by other people, that's also I'm being tokenized, I'm being fetishized. Sure. And all of that together is, for me, a really interesting yoga practice.
Constant thoughts. You just kind of have to keep going on your own path and not let them hit you.
Yeah. And I think there is some like just letting them hit you and just continuing
or just
on even with that. Yeah. I think it's just a part of it. There are edges to the healing that we all have to do together. And for me, this is one of those edges.
Yeah, for sure. I just want to go back to coming out for a second. So the faith is not great with homosexuality. What were your parents' reactions like?
In line with that. My
tough.
mother was definitely very upset. And I mean, I frame it as like she made it about her, but that's me being selfish. And we were both having a day. We were both having our time with it. But I remember her crying quite a bit. And the way that I delivered the information, she was like, Jessamyn, are you giving a monologue? Because if you're acting, this is not funny. And I was like, I'm not. It's not what this is. I just.
You're like, do you think I'm a fantastic actor?
Yeah, right. I actually, my podcast, Dear Jessamyn, our episode 10 is all about season 1, episode 10 is all about this. So if you're curious, you can find Dear Jessamyn anywhere that you can listen to podcasts. But the thing for me with it, that the part that was kind of funny for me was that my father, he did not have that reaction. He was like, I think he was just glad that I wasn't saying that I was pregnant. So he was like, it was like a lot of buildup, and he was like, oh, that's okay. He was like, I know lots of lesbians. That's no big deal. You're good. And I was like, okay, cool.
Oh, that's so nice.
Yeah. He's like low-key feminist. I say low-key in the sense that I think he's like, well, why wouldn't you be a feminist? Like, why wouldn't you feel this way? Like, I don't think he would call himself that, but I think he just kind of is.
That's really sweet. I'm glad that you had at least one person to be supportive.
Well, it was kind of a double-edged sword, because I remember us having that conversation during my actual coming out. But I remember when I was first reading the writings and noticing the homophobia. And what I deem as homophobia is that there are writings where they say that Bahá'ís should treat homosexuals like lepers, and like in the way that you wouldn't want to touch someone who has leprosy for fear that you get leprosy, you wouldn't want to touch someone who is homosexual. So I was like, I don't know about all this on any level at all.
Yeah.
But I remember talking to my father about it, and he was pretty much like, what he was trying to tell me was to not take it that seriously, or to not, basically like to take what I want and leave the rest. But at the time I didn't process it that way. And I was just like, I felt like he was trivializing what I was saying. And so one of the few fights that he and I have ever had came from that. So that it's like it was kind of a mixed bag. But ultimately, I would say that both of my parents are extremely supportive. And since then, my brother has also come out. So we're like,
oh my God.
They
Go
gave
fam.
birth to two queers. Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, everybody's queer.com in my book. But
Totally.
Yeah.
Like, how come a straight can't rub off on you?
Right, literally. Exactly. Sometimes
Like,
I feel like it does rub off. Like, I'll
definitely
be doing
does.
things and I'll be like, oh my gosh.
that's compet, baby. Yeah.
Exactly.
Where did you grow up?
I'm from Greensboro, North Carolina, which is about,
been there.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Do you have Southern connections?
My dad's best friend lives there. And so I visited her
Dope.
for a week. Yeah.
Yeah, super cool. Where are you based now?
New York.
And you're from New York.
I'm from New York. Yeah.
What part?
City.
I see. Manhattan? Y'all are a very specific breed.
Totally. Very rare. A lot of yoga. A lot of yoga up here.
Totally.
And,
100% yoga.
nobody
100%
working on the
bagels.
inside. Everybody working on the
Yes.
outside. Like,
Absolutely.
that used to be one of the things that pissed me off in a yoga class. Is it would be like, appreciate your body and worship your body. And I'd be like, I fucking hate my body. I came
what
in
are
here
you
to
saying?
fix my body. You know?
That's why I never link yoga and body acceptance really. Like it doesn't feel like, I know so many body negative people who practice yoga that I'm just like, those things don't really go together. But I think that mainly because I think that yoga is about something so much bigger than the physical body, that the relationship that you have with your physical body is kind of like, meh. It could be good, it could be bad, whatever. But it can also get hypocritical really fast, or like sound really hypocritical very quickly. So I feel
and it can take over your life. Like, I mean, I have bad body dysmorphia, and I spend too much time thinking about my body. Whereas, so if I want to go to a yoga class, I'm like, I don't want to do that because that's going to be thinking about my body.
That is so interesting, and that is so real. Like, if you don't want to think about your body, why would you want to be in an environment where you're being made to think about your body?
Yeah, and there's
But
like 4 walls of mirrors, and you're like, oh, I've never seen it from that angle.
That was my whole thing. So when I first started going to yoga classes, I was going to Bikram yoga, and Bikram, they always have mirrors up. And a huge part of the practice too is like looking at yourself in the mirror. And I would just be looking at myself, and I avoided mirrors and avoided cameras. And it was just like, now I have to stare at myself, and I would just judge literally every single piece of myself. And eventually there's a point of like, I'm just gonna look in my eyes, because this is depressing ultimately. And then looking in my eyes is like, wow, look at this magnificent creature being that is doing so much and that is carrying so much. And that's kind of where I land with it now, is that like, how my body looks is incidental. Like, and it just is gonna look a lot of different ways. It has already looked so many different, today it has looked so many different ways, but like, it is just going to continue to change. If I am lucky and so blessed to continue living, it'll just keep changing. And all I need to do is just be present to the changes. I just gotta show up for duty, and I don't need to worry about anything else. I don't have to like the uniform. I just gotta wear it.
Are you a big time fluctuator?
Like in the way that I
like
look,
in how you feel you look?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think these days less than others, but that's probably just like getting older in general. But like, yes, definitely. And that's another thing about the whole body acceptance journey, is that I feel like it's a day by day journey. And for me, there's no landing point. There's no like, this is forever. And I don't think there is for anybody. I think that we're all in a constant state of change, that the fluctuations, as you said, are like a part of being alive, that
Totally.
they're proof that you're alive.
Totally. I always, or not always, but sometimes I'll complain to my boyfriend. I'm like, I hate my body today. He goes, yeah, wait till tomorrow. It'll look good.
Totally. Absolutely. He's like, get a new outfit. You'll be all right.
Yeah.
No,
or you'll just wake up and feel differently, or you'll,
literally
be less bloated because it's a different day.
There's nothing like something bad happening also to really make you appreciate your body. Mm-hmm. Talk about this some in yoke. I was in a scooter accident where the whole side of my body just like Parmesan cheese grated across the pavement. And I remember thinking like, wow, I guess my arms aren't that fat. Like, I guess, it's not that big a deal. Like, yeah. Or maybe they are fat, and that's a good thing. Maybe we're all good here. Like, and it shouldn't take something like potentially tragic happening to feel like your life is worthwhile, but it certainly doesn't hurt. It's a very impactful way of remembering. Mm-hmm. If I'm breathing, I'm still here. I'm still in the game. Doesn't matter what my physical body can or cannot do. It just, if I can just breathe through it, that's the point.
Is there no better day than the day after a cold, like a sinus infection, where you're like, I can breathe again. Like, I forgot how good this was. Like, I should just shut up.
Literally. You should be like, oh my God, I didn't or like having a really bad headache. And then you don't even realize that you didn't have a headache before that headache because it is just so profound. And then when it's gone, it's like, oh my God, what is going on? Who am I? What is life? Yeah, I feel you.
And you also offer classes online so that if anybody is thinking, I want to do yoga, but I don't want to go to a studio, I don't want to talk to the other people, I don't have a full aloe set.
Totally.
Aloe's the new one, I heard.
Totally.
You can do it at home.
Exactly. And really, I found my practice really blossomed at home. I feel like being in a group class environment can be very intimidating. And so being able to establish a home practice, even if you do go to group classes, is a great way to just know yourself and feel comfortable and confident in your body, and know that it doesn't matter what you're wearing. It doesn't matter what you look like. It doesn't matter if you fart. It doesn't matter what other sounds your body might make. All of those things are good. You're a human. They're supposed to happen. And you can definitely establish, I have personally found that establishing that practice through online classes is so crucial. And that's why I started the Underbelly, where you can practice yoga with me. You can you can try a 2-week free trial at theunderbelly.com. And we are on, you can stream on like essentially any place where you can stream things.
So cool.
And I feel like being able to find that practice for yourself in your home space, to be able to find home within yourself, is the key to really feeling confident in any kind of physical exercise class, whether it's yoga or CrossFit or like literally whatever it is you decide to do.
Yeah, I like being at home because then it's like cozier. You can have your tea.
Totally.
You can have a blanket next to you, or like you can be naked and not think about like some guy staring at the back of my ass.
Exactly. Literally. And also being able to like really touch your body and like engage with it. I think so many of us are trained to not touch ourselves. We're trying not to look at ourselves really at all, to pretend like our bodies aren't there. And so being in a space where it's cool to like pull your belly out and pull your thighs apart and pull your butt cheeks apart and just like really get in there and be tactile. You can do that in group classes too, but you can solidify the comfort with it at home.
Yeah. I'm sure people can feel totally comfortable in group classes. I'm just definitely not there yet. I feel like everything is very performative. If you're out in the world, it's like, I want somebody to look how I'm stretching and also like hear how intensely I'm breathing. Like, it shouldn't be for somebody else's, like an audience. It should be like a solo practice.
Totally. I think that the group experience is really powerful in that it's bringing all of our energy together, and that through all of that energy together, there's really important work that can be done, but that it has to start on the individual level. And it can be hard to do that it can be hard to start that journey in a group environment. So it's nice to have a place that you can retreat to, that you can hold on to no matter what life throws at you, no matter if, you know, the studio that you love to go to closes, or like if you find yourself in a situation where like you're in jail or you are otherwise unable to communicate with other people, where you can just be with yourself. Being able to find home within yourself is the refuge that we all need.
Yeah, the only group experience for yoga that I really, really liked was at our Ranch Reboot retreat that we talked about earlier this season. Do you have a favorite group class that you've either taken or taught?
My most favorite yoga classes that I've ever been a part of was at a prison in Washington.
Cool.
It was like an incredible experience. This program, I wish I could remember exactly what it's called, but it's in Washington State, and it's like a yoga teacher training program in the prison system where people are able to learn to be yoga teachers and teach classes to each other. It's like super cool. Being able to have a practice, it's really important to be able to remember that you're human in an environment
in such a dehumanizing experience.
You're not.
Yeah,
exactly.
Especially, I feel a lot of people are in there without cause, and that must just be such a mind fuck.
Literally.
To how do you keep surviving?
Exactly. It's of utmost importance to be able to remember your humanity and tap back into that.
Totally.
And know who you are, no matter, even if the people who are trying to control you are trying to feed you a different narrative.
A lot of people often feel like their mind is constantly on the go and they're way too busy to stop and slow down. How do you use racing thoughts in your meditations to work through what's happening and heal yourself?
I think that that's one of the interesting things to me about meditation, is that we all say like, oh, you know, I can never meditate because my mind moves too quickly. And I'm like, if your mind moves quickly, that means you are ripe for meditation. It's time to meditate. That's great. And that the chaotic thoughts are supposed to be there. That if your mind is working, then there's probably thoughts in it. And that it's not that there's anything wrong with the thoughts. It's that just letting them all be there and just being present to them and not obsessing over any one thing in particular, just letting it all be there like a baseline. And that through that baseline, you're able to find some version of peace and some version of quiet that comes through actually accepting the cacophony of sound that's happening inside of you.
Totally.
And another piece of that
words.
is that I also love that. Cacophony is an incredible word. But the other piece of that is that I don't really believe in a linear healing journey, and I don't believe in an ending point. I think the ending point is the end of life. So I feel like as long as you're still breathing, there's still lessons to be learned. And so to just say like, okay, I'm sitting down to meditate. My mind is full of thoughts. And I'm just going to let them be there. It is creating so much spaciousness. And ultimately, like, the thoughts go in and then the thoughts go out. Then you move on. And it might take quite a while of sitting with the thoughts and letting them be there before they move on. But it's all another piece of that too, is that the meditation and the yoga is not just happening when you're physically moving your body in yoga postures or when you're sitting quietly with your legs crossed and like are on a meditation pillow and you're doing your like 30 minutes or 5 minutes or whatever it is of meditation. That it's happening. To me, the most profound moments to meditate are when I'm in a fight with someone, or like if I'm really struggling with a difficult concept, or if I'm in traffic, to be able to just retreat within myself and say, I'm just going to not react.
Totally.
I'm just going to be present, not going to react. That is in and of itself a practice of meditation. And to me, like that's the crux of how you're able to carry the lessons of the meditation off the mat and into the world.
It's also a great place if you're not the one driving. If you are in the back of a car and you happen to be in traffic, that's usually when I'll like pull out my little meditation app, because I'm like, this will be done by the time that I arrive. Yes, the driver's going to think I'm fucking weird because I've got somebody telling me to breathe, but it's fine. I'll never see him again. And maybe he'll take this practice with him.
It's such a good move too. I mean, just to be able to like tune in and be like, you know what, this is what I'm doing instead. It feels so good. I feel you completely.
You have a quote that I really related to that I want to talk about as well, that you said, one of the hardest things for me to accept is that not everyone will agree with or like how I've chosen to accept myself. I'm still that girl who wants the popular kids to like me. What is that like when you're trying to like yourself but still thinking about other people's opinions?
I think it's all that there is. I think that I believe in the duality of all of it, that we're like constantly in different states of things, so that I'm like, as much as I'm accepting myself or working toward acceptance, that there's also this piece. Part of accepting is seeing that there's a piece of me that wants to be seen, that wants to be just like everyone else. And just knowing that part of myself and loving that part of myself, even loving her through the hatred and because of the hatred, that to me is a fuller acceptance of self than just saying like, no, that's who I was in the past, or like, that's something that doesn't really have anything to do with what I'm doing right now. That's just like sweeping shit under the rug. It's like hiding your garbage in the basement.
Totally.
Like, it's still going to smell bad.
I used to be very afraid of posting anything queer. Like, I'm like, oh, I'm internally queer and proud, but I don't want to post about it because I still have this very like male straight gaze that like whenever I post something or say something, like I feel like Joe Rogan's watching me and I don't even like him, but I want him to like me.
Totally.
You know,
totally.
But it makes it even better when you can be yourself, knowing that, yeah, people might not like me for this, but I like me.
Exactly. And it's a very powerful thing to stand up on your own 2 feet and say, this is who I am. And you can like it or not like it, but it's all I know is that it's who I am. I don't even have to like it or not like it. Like, I don't have to be okay with it.
I can just be
but
truthful.
It's still going to be there.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's just really incredible power and confidence that comes from that. And that power is palpable to anyone who comes near, so that like Joe Rogan, for example, can say like, well, damn, you know, maybe I was thinking about it the wrong way, or like maybe I want to accept some parts of myself too.
Yeah. What
like,
if you accidentally help the people that you're afraid of upsetting? Exactly.
Ooh. And that's what inevitably happens, is being able to make space for other people to do the same thing.
Totally. You wanted to accomplish a goal, and you did, which was to be the first Black yoga instructor on the cover of a yoga magazine. Can you tell us about what happened and how you feel about it?
Yeah, I definitely aspired to be the first fat Black person on the cover of Yoga Journal. And it did happen a couple of years ago. I was featured on the February 2019 cover of Yoga Journal. Thank you. But I found out when the magazine was published that I was not the only person who was on the cover of the magazine. They did a double cover where there was a white passing thin teacher on the cover as well. And
with you, or just a separate option?
A separate option. And it was very interesting to me because I have experienced things like that quite a lot in my life. Being tokenized and having the tokenization kind of like become that white people shit at the last minute, even more so that white people shit was not a new thing for me. So I was kind of like, I don't know if I was expecting it to happen, but it wasn't that surprising to me. But it was very interesting to me, the reaction that other people had to the cover, and the way that the backlash that it ended up being for Yoga Journal. And
what was the backlash? I remember like it was in favor of double
just
covers,
them being called fat. Well, so that was interesting. There was definitely like a mixed response of people being like, there were a lot of people who were like, this is fat phobic, this is racist. And then there were people who were like, you know, Yoga Journal has the ability to feature whoever they want to feature. And I thought the debate was very interesting. And I thought it was interesting that the motivation from Yoga Journal had definitely been to like shake up the yoga world with the cover. And I thought that's exactly what they did. They provoked a conversation that needed to be had. It wasn't the conversation that maybe they thought they were trying to have, but it was definitely the conversation that the modern yoga world needs. And so I felt really good about it and continue to feel like it's really important for stuff like that to happen because it's not really personal at all. No. It's about all of us growing and learning together.
Yeah. And I feel like there have been a lot of things recently that have gone on and it's like, oh, this was so shitty. But it's like, yeah, but the discourse after like was important.
Exactly. Literally. That's exactly right. I always think that's really what yoga is offering us is the question. It's offering the opportunity to just think twice and think about it from a different perspective and to say, what if you don't have to have the right answer? Maybe there is no good or bad. Maybe it's just all here.
Totally. We were talking about backlash before when you were on the cover of Cosmo, very little shithead Donald Trump Jr. made kind of a statement making fun of this isn't what healthy looks like. And Piers Morgan, I think, said the same things like, obese people aren't healthy. How do you respond to those comments?
I don't really think about them that much. I think that Donald Trump Jr. said that about when I was on the cover of Self this year. And then what Piers Morgan said that about the Cosmo cover. And in both cases, I just thought they were trying to stay relevant and that they were just like talking about the theme of the day. And I was like, I literally know for a fact that like boring white men love fat black women. So like for you to say anything negative is just some bullshit to me in general. And then like I feel in general about bullies that anyone who is bullying another person is feeling they're being bullied in some other part of their life. So I would think like
they're bullying themselves.
That the two of them. Yeah, exactly. That's exactly right. And so that they feel sad about some part of their life that really has nothing to do with me. And the best thing that I can do, this is how I feel in all trolling situations, is like, if I can experience compassion and understand that feeling of like wanting to make yourself feel better by any means necessary, especially if it means making someone else feel like shit. If I can get that and if I can feel compassion toward that, then I can reflect that compassion to the person so that to them it's like, I don't want to make myself sound more pious than I am by saying like nothing but love, but also at the same time, nothing but love. I'm like, I don't really care. Like you say these things. Ultimately, like, not gonna lie, it helps my reach for you to talk about me.
Totally.
So I'm like, I don't really care. Like, whatever.
Hate listening is still listening.
Yeah,
if
exactly.
That's you
so
right
I'm like,
now.
Cool. Thanks for the lift.
Yeah.
That was nice. Appreciate it. Whatever.
Yeah, but I think you're right about Donald Trump Jr. and Piers Morgan and people like that, just like wanting to stay relevant or being sad about something going on in their own lives. Because otherwise I'm like, why do you post this? Like the most recent person to do it was Jordan Peterson, who we've talked about on this podcast before for some problematic views. But the Sports Illustrated swimsuit issue came out and a model called Yumi Nu is on the cover and she's like all excited because she's plus size. And I don't know if they've had a plus size model on the cover before, but Jordan Peterson was not having it. He reposted it saying, sorry, not beautiful. And no amount of authoritarian tolerance is going to change that. And he got such bad backlash for saying that he left Twitter. So I guess not the attention he was seeking.
Oh, interesting.
But I'm always like, why do you feel the need to post that? So I feel like whenever somebody, I don't know, a lot of men will rush to comments. It's not always men. Sometimes it's women. A lot of people
it's often men.
Will comment about, oh, this person's weight it's unhealthy or whatever. And I always get really annoyed by those because I'm like, one, I just learned about the obesity paradox on TikTok, and it says that if you are more overweight, you're more likely to survive surgeries, and that doctors are like, oh, well, we don't know why this is. It's just a paradox instead of science. But also, I'm like, do you go this hard when you see somebody posting about smoking or posting about doing something else unhealthy? Like
extreme dieting.
It's not your fucking business. And also, like, I don't think you actually care about health.
That's precisely right. You don't care about health. If you cared about health, then you would care about a more nuanced definition of health in which we can all find ourselves, and where we're showing that to take care of yourself is not a political issue. It's just something that we all have to do. And it doesn't really matter what your body looks like. I think that the whole concept of weight as an indicator of health is a very outdated way of thinking about it. And that's generally how I feel about that argument. It's like, well, it's just like, it's not updated.
Totally.
And now we know that health and wellness is so much more complex than what you look like physically. And that it's really important for us to look at not just our physical health, but our mental health, our emotional health, and
our
how all of those
health.
different, and our stories and our sexual health, absolutely, and how all of that links together.
Totally. Yeah. And the healthiest version of someone's body isn't going to look like the healthiest version of somebody else's body. You know?
Exactly.
So it's hard to set a goal of what healthy looks like because we're all just built so differently.
Exactly. That's precisely right.
But speaking of sexual health, I would love to talk to you about your first orgasm. Do you remember it at all?
I don't remember my exact first orgasm, but I definitely remember what was happening around that time. I started masturbating, like officially masturbating, when I was in like middle school. And I used to do it I had this one pillow that I would like always rub up against, and like literally up until like I got my first vibrator when I was like 18, I was still using this same pillow. So it was like a very grimy pillow.
Amazing.
I just want to be real with you. But that was definitely how I like learned to come, was by just like rubbing myself against this pillow. And like even now, that's one of my favorite ways to come, is to just like be like mounting something and just like rub up against. But like I do remember, like, I don't remember the first one, but I remember thinking like, is that what an orgasm is? Is that what that feeling is? Like, I was pretty fast. I was doing, I had been researching the topic. And so this was, early internet days. So my AOL browser history was wild.
Dirty.
And also chat room history was, it was a time.
Same.
Anyway, but I definitely like, I learned a lot through AOL chat rooms. I learned a lot about fetishes and things that I'm into to this day. But that was my go-to way, was to ride a pillow. And it's only now that I'm really realizing, you were talking about squirting earlier, and that's something that like now, I've gone through many different phases of comfort with orgasming. And there was a pretty substantial period, I guess it was like encapsulated in my 20s, but there was a pretty big period where I did not come at all. And that has changed. I think it's directly linked to meditation and yoga and being able to connect with myself in a different way. But now my body just like rushes and floods in a very different way. And so to squirt is like a pretty regular thing for me.
Unreal.
But it's also not necessarily tied to orgasms.
I love it. Go off.
So I will, apparently.
Get off. Go off. Jessamyn, it's been so nice meeting you and having you here. Thank you so much for doing the pod. I wish I could keep you forever, but I can't.
Thank you so much for having me.
Of course. Are you
It was a pleasure to be
willing
here.
to come back if people have some extra questions for Patreon? Amazing.
Just let me know.
Okay, cool. Can you tell everybody where they can find you online?
Yes. You can find me at JessamynStanley.com. You can find The Underbelly at TheUnderbelly.com. You can find me on social media at My Name is Jessamyn. And you can find The Underbelly at The Underbelly Yoga. And you can find my podcast, Dear Jessamyn, at Dear Jessamyn.
Yeah, if you want more of this voice, which I'm sure you do, go check that out. Jessamyn, thank you again. I have to ask you this question after a sexual experience, which this has been. Jessamyn Stanley, did you finish?
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah. Oh. It's one of those like rolling like, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. You know?
Yes, I love that. Thank you so much for coming.
Thanks for having me.
And we'll see you next time on How Come. Bye.
It's not you, it's me. I try so hard to finish honestly. They say you'll know when you go all the way from A right down to O. Oh no, I think that I still got a ways to go. Oh, I'm sick of this and I have got to know. How come I can't achieve? How come I can't achieve? I'm rolling up my sleeves. Oh baby, I believe these guests can help, 'cause I can't do it by myself.